A game centered around not only delving into the anxiety-ridden mind of Senua, but also inducing that anxiety within you as you play this insightful game into the mind of someone slowly degrading. I would like to say this isn't a game about horror, but presents something more horrifying than a jump scare. That is, the human mind. You're faced with weird creatures and difficult puzzles, sometimes unsure if they are of your own mind or part of the background. Through confusion, sadness, fear, and loss, you find out Senua's harrowing story. There are moments of beauty with amazing graphics, large open scenic backdrops, while there are moments that test Senua and show she has a strength worth fighting for. The depiction of her hallucinations and delusions feel vivid, honest, and terrifying, from literal fragments of reality slipping to exploring confusing mazes guided by a sobbing ghost. You are left wondering if you're in reality or a terrifying myth, while finding out through the story that reality is often more frightful than myth. Even the battles in the game and puzzles you solve lead back to underlying themes and brings you further familiarity to her psychosis, showing you how alone she really is. In truth, you're never truly alone in Hellblade, as the voices speak directly to Senua throughout the entire game, always giving advice, arguing about what you're doing is wrong, tear you down, and sometimes pick you up when you most need it. Along with the stirring original music score, the amazing voice work, and the ambient sounds, both real and the imaginary, provides an environment that is worth exploring. Along with the auditory trip, the graphics in this game are gorgeous. Wafting waves upon sun-bleached beaches, bright colors, and dark somber tones. As you venture throughout the game, you will encounter both the highs and lows along with Senua. Traveling through the murk and mire of this world, you will encounter burned corpses, hewn bodies, and gruesome displays of Viking savagery. Accompanied with the voices, the eerie music, and this brings out anxiety to even the stoutest player. What makes the voices so scary for me is that Hellblade has binaural sound. If you've never heard of that, as I sure didn't till I was working on this review, binaural sound is recording using the method of two microphones arranged to give you the played 3D stereo sound.
The darkness. There will be no more stories after this one.
What is she doing? Why is she doing this?
They're watching.
Why doesn't she know you're coming?
When you hear the whispers coming at you from all different angles, you get overwhelmed. They laugh at you, cheer you on, degrade you, caution you, and question you. You will find that you will slip more out of wherever you are playing from and into Senua's world. What this helps to do is saturate your world. Even mundane moments are filled with anxiety as you try to pull a sword from a tree. The voices scream in your ear. Once you have the sword, you feel vulnerable, still bombarded with their taunts. Through the first part of the game, you have no real weapons. You're moving through the world trying to find a way to save your lover's soul. Once you find the sword and start to feel success, you are only taken down again. As when you face the darkness, you see that a sort of rot takes over. Each time you die in the game, that rot will slowly work its way up your arm. When it reaches your head, you die, and all progress is lost. In addition to the voices, the constant death around you, and now you have to worry about not dying. All this does is add a heavy layer of tension and sometimes hesitation into everything you do. In a moment of reprieve, this doesn't seem to relay to boss fights, as that was where I did most of my dying. Let's just say I should have lost my progress more times than not in those boss fights. The environment plays heavily into the gameplay, as there are times you're groping in the darkness trying to avoid hidden terrors. And man, this part legit had me on the edge of my seat. There are sounds resonating from the darkness, and then boom, a growl as you feel something else in the darkness with you. This game uses this to help incorporate that childlike fear of darkness. Boy, and it worked on me. Another thing I enjoyed about the gameplay was that there really was no HUD. No way of telling how many lives you have besides the rot growing on your arm. In a way, this evades the typical immersion-breaking HUD and allows for ways to increase your absorption into the game. The game wants you to trust the unknown, only to have that trust broken, as you realize it's another of Senua's dreams or a delusion. Even when fighting, the game has metaphor upon metaphor, as you fight your first boss only to find the flesh and bone melt away to wisp of smoke. You then find that Senua has a focus ability that once activated allows you to slice through those puffs of smoke. When you think you have won, that's when you get dragged further into the torment that is Senua's daily trial. Besides the fighting, you do have a lot of puzzles you will end up solving. The most common you'll find is seeing a rune that will find something in the environment to match it to open that door. Sometimes you do this 2 times and others more. This game is about perspective after all. One area you have to gain a perspective just to piece together a giant bridge as you look at it in different angles to meld it together. After a while you feel accomplished, at least with this visual puzzle. The underlying theme for all the puzzles is really mind-blowing in a way. If you beat the game and watch the after 25-minute bonus documentary, Paul Fletcher, the psychiatrist that helped on set, explained, people begin to see patterns in the world. They begin to link things that most people wouldn't. This comment helps to encapsulate those puzzles as you start to see links in immaterial objects that most may tend to overlook. The story of Hellblade is sad, tormenting, and heart-wrenching. Yet there is some hope, peace, and bliss wrapped up in this dialogue. As you learn more about why Senua is like the way she is, the dark that torments her, and her lost lover, Dillion, as she carries his head at her hip. The environment plays into the story, as Senua's perception of that environment helps her to draw connections on her beliefs and the configuration of her world. After solving a puzzle sequence, you are shown a story vividly, shown from the perspective of the person viewing Senua as she begs to be freed, talks with something not there, like truth, or just discusses ways to better herself. Full motion video is heavily used in these sequences, with distortion filters mixed with real people and animated people that gives you a out-of-place feeling. You find along the journey, your goal is to save your lover's soul. As you carry his head by your hip the entire time, you meet interesting characters along the way who help with the story. For example, you will encounter random stones that will have stories told by a former Viking slave named Truth. That once you focus on that stone, you get that little story tidbit that will reveal more about the Norse gods, goddesses, and what lore can be found. The best part about most of these is that it doesn't feel like it takes away from the story or gameplay itself. To me, it only further immersed me into the story, as you find out more about the Norse underworld, Helheim, and your goal to reclaim Dillion's soul from Hela herself. A hard-fought battle that can tend to take time, but sometimes the emotions rush you in to an onslaught. The game overall feels very real. For those without an issue in their psychosis, an experience to be able to understand that dread, torture, and torment that people who handle things like this experience. At its core, it's an action-adventure puzzle-solving game. The game never lets the environment grow stale. There are always changing scenes, places you thought were real change suddenly, or even moments you need to solve a puzzle while running from a flaming monstrosity. This overwhelming atmosphere, the unique way of storytelling, the fusion of the environment with Senua's ever-looming illness, all of it makes it a great game. Some of the bad I did notice is extreme stuttering when streaming the game, the extreme shortness of the game as it only took 7 hours to complete, and some minor pathfinding fighting issues. I give this game an 8 out of 10. If you can handle the anxiety right, I recommend you take the trip. As Dillion tells Senua himself, the hardest battles are fought in the mind, not with the sword. I hope you enjoyed my Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice review. If you enjoyed my video, please leave a like and a comment below on what you liked about this video, or if you have any other games you would like me to check out. If you'd like to help support the channel, make sure to click subscribe. This is the Still Grizzly wishing you luck with all your future games.